Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, profound structural shift in how businesses and organizations are going to operate in the very near future. We're calling this concept the enterprise of 2036. And look, the core premise here is incredibly stark. The surviving enterprise of the future, it's going to rely entirely on agility, intense automation, and top-tier, highly specialized human judgment, rather than just sheer human headcount. We are officially moving away from an era where bigger meant better, straight into an era where the smartest, the fastest, and the most adaptable systems simply take the lead. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start by defining the intelligence density paradigm. Then we'll examine three distinct profiles: heavy manufacturing, financial services, and the public sector. After that, we'll explore something called the dinosaur failure mode, and finally, we'll wrap up with the 2036 imperative. So, Section 1, the intelligence density paradigm, moving beyond headcount and hierarchy. Right, so what exactly is intelligence density? Well, by the year 2036, a firm isn't going to be measured by how many people it employs. It won't be measured by how many physical assets it owns or how many endless meetings its executives hold. Instead, it's measured by the density of its intelligence. We're talking about the sheer speed of its decision loops, and absolutely crucial here, its capacity to learn faster than the environment around it actually changes. That traditional top-down corporate hierarchy, it's entirely dead. In this new paradigm, what actually survives is high-level judgment, an unwavering purpose, and foundational trust. The enterprise that wins is the one that senses data faster and reallocates resources instantly. It keeps humans strictly in roles where, humanity actually matters most. Moving on to Section 2, Profile 1, Heavy Manufacturing, the Industrial Survivor. The structural shift here is literally staggering. Think about a traditional manufacturing behemoth back in 2024. You've got 28,000 employees spread across 8 different countries, completely bogged down by a rigid 5-year strategic planning cycle and a dense, multi-layered org chart. It's slow. Now, fast forward to 2036. That bloated, multi-layered structure, it collapses entirely into a flat, single-page architecture. They're running with an incredibly lean core of just 3,200 employees. And those time-consuming strategy offsites, they're permanently retired, completely replaced by an automated self-disruption probe. But here's the most incredible part. With this massive reduction in complexity, they're actually generating 4 times the total production throughput. No way, right? But it's true. Just take a second to process this massive 89% structural reduction in human mass. But here's the so what, why that actually matters. It's not just about cutting jobs, it's about entirely eliminating the friction of management. Because of this architectural shift, their total coordination expenditures plummeted. We're talking a drop from 4% of gross revenue in 2024 down to a practically frictionless 0.3% in 2036. So how on earth did they pull this off? They did it by relying on what's called an integrated enterprise intelligence stack. It executes these 4 continuous steps across the entire company: sense, interpret, decide, and orchestrate. Those 3,000 highly specialized engineers and technicians, they aren't managing spreadsheets or waiting around for middle manager approval. They rely on this continuous, high-frequency loop running autonomously across every single active manufacturing plant. It's a real game changer, a completely different way of operating physical infrastructure. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the CEO's time is entirely optimized. It's completely moved away from routine management. 60% of their time is dedicated solely to high-level, high-sigma judgment tasks. 30% goes to capital allocation reviews, and the remaining 10%, that's for deep relationship stewardship with key enterprise clients and regulators. The corporate board, they only meet for a brief 90 minutes a week, and that's just to evaluate live variations, automated structural bets, and any major exception flags. For the first time, leaders are finally freed up to actually lead. Let's move to and see how this builds as we look at Section 3, Profile 2, Financial Services, specifically the retail banking infrastructure architect. Let's contrast the incredibly bloated overhead of legacy banking with the hyper-efficient, agent-mediated network of the future. Back in 2024, a typical bank maintained around 4,200 physical branches and carried this massive, heavy overhead of 92,000 employees. But by 2036, that entire physical footprint shrinks down to just 180 flagship advisory lounges employing exactly 11,000 humans. The structural boundary of this future banking firm is defined entirely by what's called the fiduciary wedge. Routine credit adjudication, commercial underwriting, mortgage tracking, it is all routed through automated channels. Autonomous agents generate and stage all the core transactions. Humans, they only step in as validators. They literally just execute explicit authorization clicks when those automated decisions cross predefined capital or compliance risk boundaries. Compliance as code is hard-coded directly into the purpose layer of the organization. It permanently anchors every single automated decision. And this architecture creates what we call an unassailable value moat. You see, the ultimate asset is no longer the absolute capital deposit base. Honestly, that is old school thinking. The true asset now is the proprietary operational context minted natively within its learn layer, its continuous automated learning environment. A decade of continuous agent transactions creates this custom cognitive footprint that new market entrants simply cannot replicate. And because this bank built deep governance and assurance controls directly into its foundational architecture right from the start, it was able to expand its market share during regulatory shakeups. Meanwhile, their legacy competitors faced restrictive state consent decrees that blocked them from deploying autonomous agents for another decade. They literally got left behind. Okay, on to Section 4, Profile 3, the public sector. The National Licensing Agency Sovereign. And this brilliantly illustrates that even slow-moving government entities can't escape this transition. For everyday people, the real-world impact is a dramatic drop in latency. In 2024, citizens waited 4 to 8 weeks for civil permit and corporate licensing requests. It was painful. But in 2036, identical requests are fully resolved and provisioned in under 6 hours for 92% of all citizen cases. Citizens are now interacting with state infrastructure at the exact same machine tempo that defines top-tier private commerce. It completely redefines the relationship between the citizen and the state, ensuring massive political alignment. And here's the kicker. The speed didn't cost more. In fact, the annual budget was dramatically compressed to $1.4 billion, down from $2.1 billion. This fiscal efficiency was achieved right alongside an active workforce reduction. They stripped down a bloated 14,000-person administrative labor force to just 3,800 highly skilled human operators who simply oversee the localized foundation models. Now, achieving this required a pretty brutal operational window. In 2027, a cabinet-level AI portfolio was deployed. By 2028, state procurement rules were legally overhauled, legally requiring all public service delivery to be agent-native by default. Now, between 2027 and 2029, they faced and survived severe institutional disruption. We're talking pushback from labor unions, legacy procurement groups, and middle management desperately trying to block the redesign. The cabinet had to absorb massive political friction to deliver this high-performance system by 2030. And those other public entities that failed to rewrite their infrastructure in this exact operational window, well, they're currently trapped in their third consecutive state commission of inquiry. Which brings us to a warning. Section 5, the dinosaur failure mode, the traps of the legacy enterprise. So, the crucial point is knowing what to avoid. These are the dinosaur traps, fatal flaws you have to avoid at all costs. First, do not confuse scale with intelligence density. You absolutely cannot optimize for what was largest, most successful, or most established under the old 2024 conditions. And perhaps most dangerously, do not believe for a second that your specific industry is somehow exempt from this phase transition just because you rely on sticky customers, strong legacy brands, or slow regulators for safety. Confusing historical scale with future safety is a fatal error. Finally, Section 6, the 2036 imperative. The dabbling era is well and truly over. Let's systematically break down what actually makes it to the future. What survives? Human judgment, purpose, and trust. What doesn't? The traditional multi-layered org chart. Your massive transformational purpose, your MTP, and your accountability shell? Those survive. But the rigid 5-year strategic plan? Totally dead. The proprietary intelligence natively minted in your continuous learning environment is your new moat. And because of that, middle management, functioning purely as a manual coordination layer, is entirely gone. Coordination costs are rapidly approaching zero. The source text leaves us with this powerful, unforgettable metaphor to create a profound sense of urgency. It says, the dinosaurs felt the same way the morning of the impact. The asteroid is hit, the dabbling era is over. The winners of the future are currently building cities of intelligence. And they aren't doing it just for fun. They're doing it because they know that firms that don't adapt will simply be outpaced and erased by the firms that do. Which leaves us with one direct, provocative question for you to think about. Have you built the architecture? If the dabbling era is actually over, where does your enterprise stand right now?
Are you optimizing your systems for the comforts of 2024, or are you actively building the intelligence density imperative required to survive in 2036? It is time to build. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep adapting, and I'll see you next time.